Imagine you are standing on a private balcony on the 55th floor of a glass tower that seems to touch the clouds. Below you the Persian Gulf sparkles like a field of crushed diamonds under a sun that never seems to dim. You feel the cold rush of the air conditioning against your skin while the heat of the desert remains a distant memory behind triple glassed windows. This is the promise of Dubai. It is a city built on the very idea that gravity and economics are merely suggestions for those with no ambition. You see the artificial islands shaped like palm trees and the world's largest shopping mall stretching out toward the horizon. It is a land where the word impossible has been deleted from the dictionary. You are not just a visitor here. You are a part of a global elite that decided to bet on a future where luxury has no ceiling. Everything feels solid and eternal. But if you look closely at the edge are no curtains and no furniture. There are no lights turning on as the sun begins to set. You realize that you are surrounded by a forest of glass and steel that is really quiet. The dream is beautiful, but it fails you. It is as if the entire city is holding its breath and waiting for a signal that the floor is about to give away. The official reports tell a story of record-breaking growth and endless demand. Governments pocos people describe a market that is immune to the cycles of the rest of the world. They point to the millions of tourists and the billionaire migrants fleeing taxes in Europe and Asia. However, the data collected by independent analysts paints a very different picture. When you strip away the marketing brochures, you find a reality that is documented in court filings and abandoned construction sites. This investigation is based on satellite imagery and leaked financial statements that the state-controlled media outlets refuse to publish. We are looking at a system where supply has outpaced reality via margin that defies logic. The architecture of belief is strong, but the foundation of the soil is shifting. To understand how we got here, you must look back at how the promise was constructed. Decades ago, this was a quiet fishing village. Then a vision was sold to the world. Dubai would become the center of the planet. It would be the bridge between East and West and a safe haven for capital. The city grew at a speed that the human mind can barely comprehend. Developers sold apartments that did not exist yet using nothing but glossy renders and the promise of 20% annual returns. Investors from every corner of the globe poured their life savings into desert sand, believing that prices could only go up. The mechanism was simple and seductive. You pay a small deposit and the rising value of the property covers the rest of your installments. It was a perpetual motion machine of wealth that everyone wanted to join. The core of this machine relies on a process called of plan flipping. This means buyers purchase units before a single brick is laid with the intention of selling the contract to someone else for a profit a few months later. It is a game of musical chairs played with billions of dollars. As long as new buyers keep entering the market, the prices stayed. But the city has a physical limit that the developers ignored. They kept building and building until there were more luxury apartments than there were people to live in them. Now the mechanism is starting to grind. The secondary market is flooded with sellers, but the buyers are becoming harder to find. When the music stops, the person holding the contract is left with a massive debt for a property that might never be finished. Consider the story of a man named Omar, who is a structural engineer from London. 3 years ago, he invested $400,000 into a luxury development in the heart of the city. was te project world befinised vite summer of last year. Todai tat site is all inte ground surrounded by rusted cranes and faded posters of a happy family that does not exist. Omar still pays the mortgage on a ghost, has lost his savings and is fight in the system. Esais that every time, caiste developer te im that everything is on schedule despite the fact that no work has been done in 18 months. Eis one of thousands were trapped in a legal vacuum where the rules seem to change to protect the powerful. The numbers reveal an even darker reality. In the last year alone the volume of unsold inventory has climbed by 30% in certain districts. Will te adline scream about a new penthouse saying $480 million they file to mention that mid-tier developments are seeing price drops of 15%. There is a massive disconnect between the trophy assets at the top and the actual housing market that sustains a city. We see a pattern where 5,000 new needs are launched in a single week while the occupancy rate in existing buildings continues to slide. The debt levels of the major state-linked developers have reached levels that would trigger alarms in any other global economy. They are borrowing from the future to pay for the mistakes of the past. Even the institutions are starting to let the truth slip through the cracks. In a private meeting with investors, a senior executive at a major local bank admitted that the level of non-performing loans in the real estate sector is significantly higher than what is reported in the annual summaries. Aside that we cannot afford to let the bubble burst, so we simply pretend it is not a bubble. The strategy is to extend and pretend. They give developers more time to pay back loans that they clearly cannot afford. It is an organized effort to maintain the illusion of stability. If the bank started foreclosing on these properties, the market would be flooded and the prices would crash overnight. They are trapped in a cycle of their own making. The structural vulnerability of Dubai lies in its lack of a diverse economy. Without real estate and construction, the engine of the city stops. Unlike London or New York, there is no deep industrial base or centuries of institutional history to fall back on. The city is a product that must be sold every single day to new investors. If the flow of foreign money slows down for even a month, the entire system begins to starve. The reliance on external capital makes the city extremely sensitive to global geopolitical shifts. When interest rates rise in Washington or oil prices fall in Riyadh, the ripples are felt instantly in the skyscrapers of the desert. It is a fragile ecosystem that requires perfect conditions to survive. There is of course a case for optimism. Supporters of the Dubai model argue that the city has survived crises before. They point to the TW2008 crash when neighboring Abu Dhabi stepped in with a multi-billion-dollar bailout. They argue that the infrastructure is world-class and that the city remains the most attractive place in the region for talent and innovation. They believe that the current oversupply is just a temporary phase that will be absorbed as the population continues to grow. This is a valid point of view. The city has a remarkable ability to reinvent itself and the government has shown a willingness to intervene when things get dire. However, this cycle fails different for a specific reason. The scale of the debt and the volume of the oversupply are now so large that a simple bailout might not be enough. In TW2008 the problem was global. Today the problem is internal and structural. The world is also changing. Global tax transparency laws are making it harder for people to hide wealth in offshore real estate. The competition from neighboring countries like Saudi Arabia is also intensifying. For the first time, Dubai is not the only player in the region with a grand vision and the epic pockets. The exit ramp for this crisis is much narrower than it was 15 years ago. The desert as a way of reclaiming what was taken from it. If you drive 20 minutes outside the city center, you will find the skeletons of projects that were started and then forgotten. They are monuments to a misplaced confidence. The future of Dubai is not written in stone but in the shifting sands of global finance. We see a city that is turning to outrun its own shadow. The lights are still bright and the fountains are still dancing, but the cracks in the glass are growing longer every day. You have to ask yourself how long a dream can last when the people who built it are starting to wake up. This investigation is part of an ongoing effort to look behind the curtain of global economic power. We are tracking the movement of capital and the health of real estate markets in real time to provide you with the information you need to protect your own interests. The truth is often hidden in plain sight if you can know where to look. We invite you to join this process by sharing your own observations and data points in the comments. By gathering our collective intelligence, we can build a clearer picture of the world as it actually is rather than how it is marketed to us. Stay informed because the most dangerous thing in a shifting market is the belief that nothing will ever change.